Great bass response is hard to achieve, especially in a smaller room. There's a wide variety of bass traps available, and knowing which one is best for you isn't always obvious. Bass frequencies also tend to have a lot more energy than treble frequencies, so they're going to travel further and cause more reflections and buildup. A lot of these issues are concentrated in the corners of rooms, where reflections from adjacent walls build up and cause various peaks and nulls at different frequencies. It's common to see bass traps stacked floor to ceiling in the vertical corners of a room, but there are actually 8 more corners that can benefit from bass trapping. The corners along your floor and ceiling that run along the perimeter of your room also cause bass buildup issues and can benefit from treatment. Treating all of these corners isn't always feasible depending on your budget and space limitations, but luckily there's a few ways we can test to see where we should localize our treatment. Tools like Room EQ Wizard can give us a detailed breakdown of our room, but if you're not familiar with room testing, you'll probably want to use a more low-tech solution to figure out where you need to focus your treatment. If you play a low-frequency pink noise file, you can simply move around your room listening to the bass frequency and seeing where it's stronger. If you have a handheld SPL meter or an SPL meter on your phone, you can use it to make this process even easier and more precise. Finding your bass hotspots will tell you exactly where in your room you need to focus your treatment. If you only have a few panels available, this is where you're going to want to put them. GIK has a pink noise file that you can use to run this test. It contains all frequencies below 400 Hz played at a consistent volume. Link in the description. Coverage area, or the total surface area of all of your bass traps relative to your room size, is going to be the biggest determinant in your performance, but things like panel thickness and placement will also make a difference. The more bass traps you add, the better your bass response will be, but even adding a few bass traps is enough to notice a difference in most rooms. There are 2 main types of bass traps: broadband panels and tuned membrane traps. Broadband panels use a porous material to capture sound energy across the full range of audible sound. The thicker the panel, the lower the effective range, but your mids and highs are still going to be affected. A 2-inch panel like the Spot Panel or 242 will absorb down to about 300 Hz and you'll start to see some roll-off. A 4-inch panel like the 244 will absorb below 100 Hz, and a 6-inch panel like the Monster Bass Trap will absorb even more below 100 Hz. If you're in a room where bass response is very important, make sure to use the thickest panels available to you. We can actually sculpt the absorption curve for any given application using our Flex Range series of panels. By adding a range limiter to a panel, we enhance its bass absorption while lowering its treble absorption. This allows us to get more bass traps into a room without over-dampening our high range and making a room sound dead. Broadband bass traps and possibly even range-limited bass traps should always be the starting point and foundation for great bass response in a small room. Tuned membrane traps like the Scopus are designed to treat strong, stubborn resonances that occur at specific frequencies after you've done a bulk of your treatment with broadband absorbers. They're a nice finishing touch on high-end studios that might need a little help, but in no way should they be the foundational strategy for great bass response. To use a tuned trap effectively, you have to first test your room to make sure you know what frequency your problems are occurring at. You'll want to look for something like a waterfall graph or a spectrogram to let you know what areas to treat. Only then, after you have the test results, can you get the right kind of tuned trap to get an even better bass response. All of our bass traps are listed with useful graphs so you know exactly what effective range they have. If you have any more questions about our bass traps, or if you just want general room tips, hit us up on our website or check out our free acoustic advice forum, as well as our other useful online tools. Get free acoustic advice. Visit gikacoustics.com for educational articles and tutorials.